My beloved child. Stop scrolling for just a moment. Perhaps you were not searching for these words, yet somehow they found you. Whether by coincidence, by hope, or by the quiet longing hidden deep within your heart, you are here now. Let this be understood from the beginning: what follows is a fictional spiritual story, created to inspire reflection, hope, and courage. There are moments when the soul becomes so accustomed to silence that it mistakes distance for destiny. It begins to believe that what has drifted away was never meant to remain. Yet heaven, in countless stories told across generations, reminds every searching heart that appearances rarely reveal the entire truth. Tonight's story begins with someone standing at the edge of a decision that could change two lives forever. Far beyond what human eyes could see, an unseen conversation unfolded. Not to control anyone's future, but to illuminate the invisible battles that every heart faces before love either fades or finds the strength to remain. The one you call your soulmate was carrying words that had remained trapped behind trembling lips for far too long. Those words had gathered weight through misunderstandings, unanswered prayers, pride, fear, and countless nights spent wondering whether reaching out would heal old wounds or deepen them. Every heartbeat carried the same silent question. Should I stay? Or should I walk away forever? No thunder announced this moment. No choir filled the heavens. Instead, everything rested inside an almost unbearable stillness, the kind that often comes before lives quietly change. If anyone had looked upon this person, they might have seen only an ordinary face moving through another ordinary day. They would never have guessed that inside that heart a storm had been growing for months. Every memory had become another wave. Every regret another gust of wind. Every unspoken feeling another crack spreading through carefully built walls. The story you are about to witness is not about predicting the future. It is about revealing what fear can hide, what hope can restore, and how even the smallest act of courage can alter the direction of two hearts. For every goodbye is born long before the final words are spoken. It begins with silence. It grows through assumptions. It gains strength each time love waits for someone else to speak first. And yet, even in the darkest chapters, hope often lingers where no one expects it. That is where our story truly begins. Even now, while the silence feels overwhelming, there remains something hidden beneath everything your heart has been trying to understand. What appears to be an ending is not always the end. Sometimes the greatest struggle comes just before two souls finally see each other without the walls they have spent so long building. The one you have been thinking about has carried memories that refuse to disappear. There were moments they tried to convince themselves that letting go would be easier than holding on, yet every attempt to bury those feelings only caused them to rise again in unexpected ways. A familiar place, an old melody, a forgotten photograph, or even a quiet evening has awakened emotions they believed had faded. Still, fear has whispered that reaching out might only reopen old wounds. Fear has told them they waited too long. Fear has insisted that the distance has become too great to cross. That quiet voice has become louder with every passing day, making hesitation seem safer than honesty. Yet another voice has never completely disappeared. It is softer. It does not shout. It simply reminds them of the peace they once felt whenever your paths crossed, of conversations that lingered long after they ended, and of the strange comfort that only genuine connection can leave behind. Every heart reaches a moment when it must decide whether to live according to fear or according to hope. That unseen battle is unfolding now within this story, and its outcome depends not upon miracles falling from the sky but upon the courage to choose truth over silence. Imagine standing before a door that has remained closed for years. Behind it are every unanswered question, every apology left unsaid, every smile remembered, and every possibility that neither person was brave enough to explore. Opening that door feels terrifying because no one can predict what waits on the other side. Yet leaving it closed guarantees only one thing. The wondering never ends. There are nights when people convince themselves that goodbye is the only remaining path. Not because love disappeared, but because exhaustion has become heavier than hope. They grow tired of waiting, tired of questioning, tired of carrying emotions they believe no one else understands. But hidden within that exhaustion is one final opportunity. Not an opportunity to erase the past. Not an opportunity to pretend mistakes never happened. Rather, an opportunity to become honest enough that the future is no longer controlled by yesterday. As this story continues, something unexpected begins to unfold. A single realization enters the heart that has been preparing to walk away. It is small at first, almost impossible to notice, like the first light before sunrise. Yet it refuses to disappear. What if the story was never meant to end in silence? That question changes everything. For the first time in a very long while, memories are no longer viewed only through pain. They begin revealing forgotten kindness, shared laughter, quiet support during difficult seasons, and moments that once felt ordinary but now shine with extraordinary meaning. The heart that was preparing to leave forever starts slowing down. Not because every problem has vanished, but because certainty begins giving way to curiosity. And curiosity opens the door that fear spent so long trying to keep locked. Still, another challenge waits just ahead. One that neither heart expects, one capable of changing the direction of everything if it is faced with courage, and that is where this story will continue. There comes a moment in every unforgettable story when everything seems balanced between two completely different futures. One choice leads toward permanent distance. The other requires courage that neither person believed they still possessed. Neither path is easy, yet only one allows the heart to discover whether its deepest questions deserve real answers instead of endless imagination. As the days quietly pass, the silence no longer feels empty. It becomes filled with thoughts that refuse to be ignored. Every attempt to move forward without looking back only brings another reminder that some connections leave an imprint far deeper than words can explain. The one who was preparing to disappear begins noticing something unexpected. Instead of feeling relief at the thought of saying goodbye forever, they feel an increasing weight within themselves. They realize they have spent so much energy protecting their heart from disappointment that they have also protected it from the possibility of healing. For a long time, they believed strength meant walking away before another wound could appear. Now they begin wondering whether true strength sometimes means remaining long enough to speak honestly, even when the outcome cannot be guaranteed. This realization does not arrive with dramatic signs. It grows quietly, almost unnoticed, until it becomes impossible to ignore. Every memory begins asking the same question. What if fear has been writing the ending to a story that hope never wanted to finish? That single thought refuses to leave. It follows them through ordinary mornings, peaceful afternoons, and sleepless nights. It appears during moments when they least expect it, gently reminding them that unfinished conversations often remain unfinished because both hearts are waiting for the other to take the first step. Meanwhile, another journey unfolds within your own heart. You may not realize how often people hide emotions behind calm expressions. Someone can appear completely certain while privately questioning every decision they have made. They can smile while carrying regret. They can speak confidently while silently hoping for one more chance to make something right. That is the mystery of the human heart. It rarely reveals its deepest truths immediately. Instead, it protects them until the weight of silence becomes greater than the fear of honesty. The turning point of this story begins with something remarkably ordinary. A familiar place. A forgotten message. A meaningful conversation remembered at precisely the right moment. None of these events seem extraordinary by themselves. Yet together they awaken something that had almost disappeared, the willingness to believe that understanding is still possible. Not every broken bridge remains broken forever. Sometimes all it needs is one person brave enough to take the first step onto it. As hope quietly returns, another realization follows close behind. Love cannot survive on assumptions alone. It cannot grow through imagined conversations. It cannot heal through endless waiting. Eventually someone must choose truth over uncertainty. Someone must risk hearing an answer instead of forever wondering what that answer might have been. That possibility feels frightening. But strangely, it also feels freeing. Because uncertainty has held both hearts captive for far too long. As the final moments of this chapter unfold, the person who once believed goodbye was inevitable finds themselves standing before an unexpected opportunity. Nothing has been guaranteed. Nothing has magically become perfect. Yet something inside has changed. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen?" they begin asking, "What can still be made possible?" And sometimes, that single change in perspective becomes the beginning of an entirely different ending. Whether those two hearts ultimately reunite is a story that cannot be decided by destiny alone. It will be shaped by honesty, humility, forgiveness, and the courage to speak what has remained hidden for far too long. For now, only one truth remains clear. The final goodbye they once believed was unavoidable has not yet been spoken. And because it has not been spoken, the next chapter still holds a possibility neither heart can fully imagine. The quiet that follows is unlike anything either heart has experienced before. It is no longer the silence of avoidance, nor the silence of defeat. It is the silence that comes just before a decision finally rises to the surface. For so long, both lives have been moving in separate directions while carrying invisible questions that refuse to fade. Every passing day added another layer of uncertainty, yet beneath it all remained a simple truth that neither had fully confronted. Not every distance is created by the absence of love. Sometimes distance is built from misunderstandings left unexplained, expectations left unspoken, and fears that quietly convince people they are protecting themselves when they are actually protecting their loneliness. The one who had almost convinced themselves to leave forever begins looking back with different eyes. Moments once remembered only for their pain now reveal details that had been overlooked. There were acts of kindness hidden inside ordinary conversations. There were sacrifices that went unnoticed. There were attempts to understand each other that failed not because they lacked sincerity, but because both hearts were speaking different emotional languages. That realization does not erase the hurt. It simply makes the story more complete. For the first time, blame begins giving way to understanding. And understanding has a remarkable way of softening even the hardest memories. There is still uncertainty ahead. Neither person knows how the other will respond. Neither can predict whether the bridge between them remains strong enough to cross. Yet they finally recognize that carrying unanswered questions forever is heavier than facing an honest conversation. Courage rarely feels like confidence. More often, it feels like taking one trembling step while hoping the ground beneath you will hold. As evening settles, an unexpected calm begins replacing the endless noise that once filled every quiet moment. The heart that had been preparing its farewell no longer rehearses goodbye. Instead, it begins imagining something it had almost forgotten was possible. Understanding. Not perfection. Not instant healing. Simply the chance to be heard without masks, without assumptions, and without allowing fear to speak louder than truth. Life has a curious way of presenting opportunities when people finally become willing to see them. Sometimes those opportunities arrive through a simple message. Sometimes through an unexpected meeting. Sometimes through a conversation that almost never happened because one person nearly decided it was too late. Yet, too late is a phrase fear often invents long before hope has finished writing its story. That thought lingers. It refuses to disappear. Every heartbeat now carries less regret than before and a little more determination. The future remains unwritten, but that no longer feels frightening. It feels honest. For no one can rewrite yesterday. But everyone has the chance to decide what they will do with today. And perhaps that is where the greatest turning point has always been waiting, not in extraordinary signs, but in the quiet decision to choose sincerity over silence. The chapter closes with both paths still open. One path leads back into endless wondering, where questions echo without answers and memories slowly become heavier than they were ever meant to be. The other path asks for courage. It asks for humility. It asks for patience. Most of all, it asks each heart to stop allowing fear to make decisions that only love, wisdom, and honesty should make. As the first light of a new morning begins to appear, nothing outwardly seems different. Yet everything within has begun to change. The goodbye that once felt inevitable has lost its certainty. The future that once appeared closed has quietly opened by the smallest measure. And sometimes, the smallest opening is all hope needs to begin shining through. But the story is not over yet. The next chapter will reveal what happens when hidden truths are finally spoken aloud, and whether two hearts that nearly became strangers can discover that some endings were never meant to be endings at all. Morning arrives with no dramatic sign, no voice from the heavens, and no certainty about what the next few hours will bring. Yet something has undeniably shifted. The burden that once demanded an immediate farewell has become quieter, replaced by a question that refuses to fade. What if one honest conversation can accomplish what months of silence never could? That question lingers with every step. It is not loud enough to silence every doubt, but it is strong enough to keep hope alive. Sometimes the smallest spark is all that is needed to illuminate a path that seemed lost in darkness. The heart that had prepared itself to walk away forever now pauses before making a final decision. It remembers not only the painful moments, but also the laughter that arrived unexpectedly, the kindness shown during difficult seasons, and the comfort found in simply knowing someone understood without every feeling needing to be explained. Memories have a remarkable way of changing when viewed through wisdom instead of regret. The past no longer appears as a collection of mistakes alone. It becomes a teacher, quietly revealing how easily assumptions can grow when communication disappears, how pride can disguise itself as strength, and how fear often convinces people that distance is safer than vulnerability. Yet vulnerability is where genuine healing begins. No one escapes disappointment by hiding forever. A guarded heart may avoid some pain, but it also misses opportunities for understanding, forgiveness, and growth. As these thoughts settle, another realization follows. No relationship, no matter how meaningful, survives because two people never struggle. It survives because they choose to face those struggles instead of allowing them to become permanent walls. The future remains uncertain, and perhaps it always will. No person can predict another person's response with complete confidence. That uncertainty has always existed. The difference now is that uncertainty no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like an invitation to seek clarity instead of remaining trapped by imagination. Every unanswered question carries two possible endings. One is created by silence. The other is created by truth. Silence often sounds easier in the beginning, yet it grows heavier with time. Truth may feel uncomfortable for a moment, but it has the power to replace endless guessing with understanding. That is why this chapter is not about dramatic miracles or impossible promises. It is about courage. The quiet courage to speak. The quiet courage to listen. The quiet courage to accept that healing rarely happens in a single moment, but often begins with a single sincere choice. As the day unfolds, an unexpected sense of peace begins to replace the restlessness that once seemed impossible to escape. The weight of "what if" slowly gives way to another thought. What if today becomes the beginning of something wiser than yesterday? No answer appears immediately. And perhaps that is exactly as it should be. Some of life's most meaningful moments are not revealed all at once. They unfold gradually, allowing both hearts the time to grow into the people they need to become. With each passing hour, fear loses a little more of its grip. Hope gains a little more ground. Neither has won completely. The story still hangs in the balance. But for the first time in a long while, the possibility of understanding feels stronger than the certainty of goodbye. And just as the sun begins to sink beyond the horizon, an unexpected opportunity quietly appears, one that neither heart anticipated, one that could finally bring hidden feelings into the light. Whether that opportunity will be embraced or allowed to slip away remains unwritten. That answer belongs to the next chapter. The evening settles with a quiet stillness that feels different from every night before it. The world continues as it always has, yet within two hearts something has begun to awaken. It is not certainty. It is not complete peace. It is simply the realization that some stories deserve one final chance to be understood before they are allowed to end. The opportunity that appeared so unexpectedly does not arrive with fanfare. It comes in the form of a simple decision. A message waiting to be sent. A phone held for a little longer than usual. A name that has been avoided suddenly no longer feels impossible to look at. For a brief moment, time itself seems to slow. Every fear speaks at once. What if nothing has changed? What if it is too late? What if reaching out only creates more pain? Yet beneath every fearful question lies another voice, quieter but stronger than before. What if understanding has been waiting on the other side of one honest step? That thought refuses to disappear. The memories that once felt like chains now become reminders of how deeply two lives influenced one another. Not every memory brings joy. Some still carry sorrow. Some still carry disappointment. But together they tell a story far richer than either heart had allowed themselves to remember. Growth often begins when people stop asking who was right and start asking what can be learned. That lesson slowly transforms everything. Instead of replaying old arguments, the mind begins recalling moments of compassion. Instead of counting failures, it remembers perseverance. Instead of assuming the worst, it becomes willing to seek the truth. No miracle changes the past. No mysterious force erases every mistake. But wisdom has a way of making yesterday less painful because it gives today's choices greater meaning. As the hours pass, the weight of silence becomes impossible to ignore. There are words that have waited far too long to be spoken. Not because they promise a perfect ending, but because they deserve to exist in the open instead of remaining hidden forever. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is not finding the perfect words. It is simply choosing honesty over fear. A quiet determination begins replacing hesitation. Whatever happens next, it will no longer be imagination guiding the future. It will be truth. And truth, even when difficult, has a remarkable way of setting the heart free from endless uncertainty. The journey has never truly been about preventing goodbye. It has always been about refusing to let fear make the final decision. Whether two people continue together or choose different paths with mutual understanding, peace can only grow where honesty is allowed to live. As the night deepens, one final realization settles into the heart. Love is not measured only by how tightly someone holds on. Sometimes it is measured by the courage to speak sincerely, to listen with humility, and to accept whatever answer follows with grace. The story now stands at the edge of its most important moment. The silence that lasted so long is about to be broken. Words that have remained unspoken are finally ready to find their voice. What those words will reveal, and how they will transform both hearts, belongs to the next chapter, where everything that has remained hidden will finally come into the light.